Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fair Life with Andrew McKee. Woo! It's been another week, another crazy week, and I am spending a lot of my time getting ready for Gen Con, where I will be there in Indianapolis in about under 3 weeks. So, yeah, no pressure there. Hello everyone, great to see you, Damaris and Janine and Harvey and Jessica and Chris and Kurt. Thanks for joining me. So punctual too. That's always good. I try to be punctual too. I don't always make it, but I try. And uh, oh wow! And Jessica is about to move to New Mexico. Wow, that's huge. Hopefully, that's a good move for you. Uh, New Mexico going to be a lovely state in some areas, so here's hoping. Don't worry, Gwendolyn. I just started, so it's perfectly all right. No worries. Yeah, just yeah, it has it's been a little crazy for me because conventions are very different than Ren fairs. And well, I mean, how many of you have been to conventions, to sci-fi fantasy conventions of any kind? I'm curious. A few, most, I don't know, but yeah, sci-fi fantasy conventions or anime conventions or any type of convention like that, prep is totally different. I mean, you'd think it'd be easier because you're indoors. You know, you don't have to deal with the elements as much. It You'd think it'd be a lot easier. Not exactly true because with conventions, if you're performing there, you have to set up a table. So it's not just a small little box that says, "Hey, here's my CDs" or "Here's my merch." Uh, you have to decorate and set up an entire table, have people man it, and gear it for that, which is a bit more work. So it's sort of like think of it like having a booth and performing and managing all the people and everything involved with that at a fair. And there are people that do that. They have a booth and they perform and do the same thing. And I I know exactly what they're going through, or at least pretty close, because conventions are more like that, and it is a little more work. Yes. Oh wow. Well, yes. I guess technically that is a convention, Janine. Some work place or scientific conventions are uh, not that far off. Believe it or not, they have panels and workshops. They'll have discussions, and it is about networking, and they have parties and all of that too. So I mean, it's not that different. So just yeah, imagine that I'm giving a bunch of lectures and also have to maintain a table promoting my company and selling my product at the same time. So that's kind of yeah, it's a little more work in a way than a Ren fair. Surprisingly, I would have never thought that before I did it, but afterwards, that one weekend feels like I'm prepping for an entire run of fair. Really. Um, so yeah, it's a little crazy. It is a little crazy. Um, but yeah. Oh yes, and yes, yes, that would uh that would be true. That would be true. And hey, Jan, glad you made it. Always good. And howdy, Greg. So yes, I think I still have a lot more to do to prep for Gen Con, but one thing that I've prepped that I'm proud of that I think you'll appreciate is I'm going to try to keep the show going even while I'm on the road. And I've always tried. I don't always succeed, but one of the things I've got was a external portable monitor for my laptop, so that I'll have a two monitor setup, which it may not seem like it's that big of a deal, but it's really hard to do a stream with one screen because I mean, first of all, my OBS and how I stream, it fills the screen pretty fully, and I switch between different pages and everything. Um, I'll go and jump over here and jump back and do that, and I have to switch between that, and you have to have that active. And if you have like a well like notes for the show and other also Facebook and YouTube so that I can make sure that we haven't disconnected and all of that. I like to have all of that open so I have it prepared. And having that extra monitor is going to make it a lot easier to do this on the road. So as long as I have a good internet connection, I think I'm good. So I'm gonna try to bring everything and maybe do some remote shows while I'm there. So that will be fun. That will always be fun. I don't know. I was thinking about maybe trying to do a remote show at the con, specifically on a different, not a Monday night, but just like a little mini show of my own. But I don't know. I'm still debating that. I don't know. What do y'all think about that? That me playing music for, just doing a quick 30-minute show on a Friday night or something like that might be fun. No, I could even do it Saturday or Sunday night if those nights would be better. I don't know if it matters too much. I can do either. But yeah, actually Sunday might be a good time. That would be it'd be different because then I'd be doing that and this back to back. But anyway, something to think about. Something to think about. So these are the things that keep me up at night trying to debate on. Oh wow, watching old Dragon Con shows from 2020. Always fun. And thank you. Yeah, I think it'd be cool too. A lot of it is going to depend on my internet connection at the convention. Now, I do have my cell phone that has unlimited data, but what I've found is in certain remote areas, even though it's quote unlimited data, the bandwidth sucks. Even though it's 5G, it still is slow. You have the capacity, but they don't have the infrastructure to back it up. And sometimes you're in a big city, but in a convention, there are thousands and thousands of people. So they're all saturating that bandwidth for that area. So it can be tough. So I'm gonna try, and we'll see. The hotel should have an internet connection too. But you know me, I'm a stickler for quality. So there's a line I just don't want to go below as far as quality of a show, where some other people, they don't care as much. They'll have all this blocky video and think, well, as long as you can hear me, it's fine. And I guess there's some truth in that. We kind of talked a little bit about that last week, but for me, video and audio are both equally important to different people. It just depends on what they want to see. And, it can be a real drag to miss out on something you really want to see from a video, whether it's seeing what chords I play on a particular song or hearing me clearly. So I just want to make sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. But yes, anyway, so this week, well, I guess there was an interesting article in the news about, in the category of not a surprise to anyone, they did a study on the effects of alcohol at different ages and came to the realization that if you drink alcohol below the age of 40, it has no health benefits whatsoever. So, yes, we already all knew that. Come on. They've been saying that for years. The whole take a glass of wine after the age of 40 has been a thing for decades now. So they just continued to have data that says, yes, this is true. So, okay. Oh, and Kathy Evans is coming from YouTube because Facebook page didn't work. And that's another reason I really like having both, because it can really help. I mean, I like having options. And sometimes Facebook is down in some areas. And it's not... it's easy to think of the internet as having, well, Facebook, everybody connects to the same thing, and it's all in one location. Not true. That you connect to a local server that for your area, and if it's having problems or you're down and or just low connection, I mean it's just blocky or having problems connecting, everybody else in the country, fine. So yeah, it's nice to have options. But I'm glad you made it on YouTube, Kathy. Always a good thing. But yeah, so I don't know. So you reversed the process. Okay, Greg, you drank until you were 40 and then you quit. I don't know. I wonder if that's... I wonder that alone is probably a health benefit, because generally the consensus is prolonged, continual. It just affects your body continually over time. But I'm sure anything that is bad for you over a long stretch of time, if you quit, then that's probably a good thing. I never drank much. I didn't drink until I was very, very very, very late in life for me. And I, I don't drink much because my palate was just so not used to it. I'll do it every once in a while, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, I'd look at it as medicine and just take a shot of whiskey every night, and for to do it that way over the age of 40. But I don't know. I don't think that's quite as healthy as they say wine is. So, hmm. Oh, video but no chat. Hmm, that's interesting. That is interesting. Well, hopefully, I don't know. There are some streamers that will put the chat up, on the side, so that no matter what you're on, you can see the chat from everyone. You can see Facebook and YouTube and Twitch or Discord or whatever they do. Have it on and just show a general chat. Um, Maybe that would be good. But I always thought it'd be a bit of a distraction to see the chat for everyone. Generally, what I would recommend, Kathy, is maybe try it on your phone for Facebook so you can see the chat, but then keep the video on YouTube, unless you're using your phone for everything, and that was part of the problem. But maybe give that a try just to see chat. Worth a shot, at least. Never hurts. But anyway, yeah, this week I wanted to get into a topic I've been talking about for a while, and I keep teasing y'all with week after week, saying, okay, next week I'm going to talk about this, and I haven't. But I've been trying to get into the different influences of Renaissance fairs and medieval fairs, and what kind of led up to that, and why we have fairs the way they are now. That's kind of the big thing, because I'm always a why person. I like that process. And okay, you're on your phone, so okay, well, I guess YouTube it is. If any relevant comments come in, I'll post them up, and you'll be able to see them that way, Kathy. I'll do my best. I sometimes wait a while, but I'll just let people interrupt me tonight because sometimes you do. So yeah, this time I talked a little bit about in the past about how the different medieval and Renaissance market fairs, and even long thousands of years before that, the history of the market fair, and how important that was to the local economy and religion and industry and everything in different areas, how it built up with the great cities of antiquity. So now I'm going to talk about international prestige and what that came to in the industrial age. And just when the Industrial Revolution was starting, World's Fairs came up at the same time. In the late 1700s, the first World's Fair was held in Prague in 1791. And now it was all about Prague. It wasn't that international, but it did have a huge national fair that celebrated the industry and the manufacturing methods and sophistication of them in the different Czech lands in that area. So it was kind of a big deal. But then when you start getting into the 19th century, it started to become a more international type of approach. And well, yeah, I mean, I think it really made a huge change in the really famous Crystal Palace Great Exhibition in 1851. Funny. But yeah, I mean, you get the Crystal Palace exhibition. Here we go. Here's a nice little picture of it. You can kind of see how the scale. I'll show you later pictures. It'll show you exactly how crazy large this was. It was a big deal in 1851. Speaking of Queen Victoria, and it was really based on Prince Albert, her husband, and it's generally considered the first international exhibition because it encouraged exhibits from different countries. And it was about showing off England, and sure it was, but it really went a long way to introduce people who visited into what's going on in England, the new science, the new technology, the new manufacturing, and all these different areas throughout the world, and what's going on there and what it's like. And it really was a huge step forward. And sometimes this worked its way into a little bit of history and a little bit of culture and architecture and all of that, which is something that you will see at some Ren fairs. They will bring that in and try to show some of the history and the architecture and what it was like at in that faraway land at that time. So you will get some of that, and it was quite interesting. Let's see. We've got here's a good shot of the painting of the inside, and yeah, you can kind of see how it was 2 stories, and how just the displays and the different areas they had. I mean, let's just say the ticket was worth the price of admission, and it was huge, and it went on for many, many months. It was a huge deal. Um, so, and yes, as a matter of fact, they do. Although they're not exactly, I mean, they're usually different parts of the world, and they come out and every few years they have an organizational body that handles that, kind of like the Olympics, and tries to promote that. And yeah, it's a big deal. They're not quite the same. It's more about technology and environment and culture now than it used to be. But yeah, I think the huge heyday of the World's Fair kind of ended in the 60s and 70s and 80s. That was sort of the last bit of, we're going to go crazy and spend ridiculous money on this. But they still do them, and they still are popular, but I don't think they quite get the press they used to. But here's another shot from another angle, another painting, and you can just see how amazing this was. Now keep in mind, this was in 1851. I mean, look at the construction and the architecture in this, and this was not a permanent structure. This was temporary. This was built and then taken down, at least partially taken down. So it's pretty cool. Oh, excellent. Glad the chat is back. Um, so yes, it didn't just stay like this all the time. Um, I'm not actually sure on that, Jessica. I'd have to look that up, but it's still fascinating. I really just like that concept of the fairs. Now, later on, when you start getting into the later 1800s, it the whole cultural concept really took off even more. The idea of what other cultures are doing, what other parts of the world are doing. I mean, keep in mind that this was a time when writers were writing about, the Amazon and the and Africa and the whole continents that had not really been explored at that point. And it is it was kind of a big deal to have exhibitions from that. And Kurt, I was actually about to get there, and you beat me to it. So, but we're thinking the same thing. So yes, yes. But yeah, it was. Some of them were a little rough. And in like the 1890s, they would put like native villages as an exhibition, where they would show the life of groups from Africa, Asia, and South Pacific Islands, and they were called, not very respectfully, primitive societies. And yeah, these days that of course would not fly, and you kind of have to keep in mind that that's the time that we lived in, and the British were, and the French, and a lot of the Europeans had a colonial view of the rest of the world. So it makes sense, but some of it is a little iffy. At the same time, a lot of products were introduced at Faire. And that was a huge deal for industry to release. I mean, think of it like now we have those conventions, like conventions that Jeannie and I were talking about for technology, for companies, where they release they show off their new car or their new process or their new product. Microsoft shows off their new operating system and or their new Xbox and all of that kind of concept, and it kind of had that as well. That was really, World's Fairs were big for that, because you'd be showing off a product, to not just that country, but a lot of powerful, wealthy visitors from all over the world would come and visit, and you'd be showing off your new invention. So items like the telephone, the zipper, the dishwasher, the electric plug and socket, later the television, and even the touch screen. The first touch screen, HP, demonstrated that. I believe in the early 80s. But yes, that was all of those ideas were premiered at at World's Fairs. The Ferris wheel made its debut at a World's Fair, if you can believe that. Um, Others like Cracker Jacks and alcohol like Pabst Blue Ribbon and Wrigley's Juicy Fruit Chewing Gum. Vienna sausages were introduced to the American audience at a World's Fair. So you get a lot of European and other foreign foods got their start at World's Fairs in the U.S. And even, unfortunately, Aunt Jemima, not a very good brand, but yeah, it got its start there. And the actress who played the character started there too. So pretty crazy. Iced tea was introduced, cream of wheat, ice cream cones. I could go on and on. It is just crazy, crazy. Right, Jessica, totally. It gets that's probably true. I'm not sure about that, but it wouldn't shock me. Uh, but yes, it is. The products were pretty crazy, but you'd also get a lot of architectural uh, structures that were, I mean, not just the Ferris wheel, but the Eiffel Tower was actually part of a World's Fair. It was built for the World's Fair in Paris, and at the time, Parisians hated it. They thought it was just a gaudy structure just for the World's Fair, and it was twice, well, almost twice as tall as the current man-made structure height in the world, and they just thought it was going to ruin the Paris skyline. They changed their tune eventually, but yeah, I mean, you get things like that are introduced. So these I mean, I know I can go on and on about this, but the concept that I want you to get from this is that World's Fairs were a huge deal. They brought a lot of prestige to their countries, and I can keep going on this, but what I should probably do is just jump into 7 reasons before it gets too late, because my 7 reasons is 7 ways that World's Fairs were really great for their countries at the time. So yeah, let's jump on that. The 7 reasons. So we'll start with number 7, which is national pride, because that was, well, I mean, it, the hosting country always kind of got an edge, kind of like the home field advantage in sports. I mean, they of course had the premier areas to exhibit. This is what our country is about, and they could spread out. They weren't limited to the World's Fair because you were in the country. I mean, you could really do a lot to show off the wonders of your country to a lot of tourists who would travel from all around the world to see these things. So it was an opportunity to really just show off your country in a positive way. I mean, not only did you have a lot of cool stuff in your country, but you were cool enough to put on a World's Fair. So you had that sort of prestige and national pride. So pretty cool. Number 6, foreign relations. Believe it or not, there you gained a lot of notoriety, a lot of a lot of prestige by hosting a World's Fair, and companies would come and put up exhibits at in your country. So it opened up a lot of doors for international trade from your country. I mean, it was a good opportunity to get your get your Secretary of State and that kind of thing in gear and go really get some work done. So and they did. Now, of course, that's for the governments, but you also had company PR, because these companies would come out and they would showcase things in a way. This was before the internet, so it was a way to promote something to the wealthier people that could travel. I mean, it's like uh, product placement in a way that just for the best possible demographic you can. So yeah, it was it was pretty cool. Number four, stimulate the local economy. Well, of course, if you're going to have an event that lasts months and months and months and brings a lot of tourists into whatever major city you're putting it in, it's going to be good for the economy, definitely. So always a good thing. Inspiration. I mean, you got to realize that in the late 1800s, when they demonstrated electricity, what did they do? They brought Nikola Tesla in to demonstrate electricity. How many of you wouldn't pay pay for a ticket to get a electricity demonstration from Nikola Tesla and probably be able to talk to him afterwards? I mean, come on, that is crazy. So yeah, you really get a lot to inspire you. And think about all the writers like an H.G. Wells or a Jules Verne who would go to these World's Fairs and find out about all these amazing new things that are going on. I mean, I really believe that at least maybe some of what they wrote about might have been inspired by some of this stuff. And other writers, I'm sure, too. So kind of a big deal. Number two, share culture and history. And that's kind of the big thing that I think transitions over into Ren fairs and medieval fairs. Because especially... Yeah, Kurt, yeah, just a fad, just a fad. Uh-huh. Yeah. We'll all be on cosmic waves in the future, I know. Cosmic rays, that's where we're going. But no, yeah, sharing the culture and the history is just, it was a huge change when that became more of a thing in the late 1800s. And it really carried on a lot. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But, well, there's always going to be the problems when you get a lot of people together. You know, I mean, if we haven't learned about that recently in the last decade with events, then we really need to pay more attention to the news. Right? I totally agree with that. Tesla, I mean, just amazing, amazing presentations. I can't even begin. Oh, I wish they'd had video back then. Oh, that would have been nice. That would have been so nice. Okay, and number one, inform about the future. And that's not so much what Ren fairs are about, but as far as world fairs, I think number one and number two kind of show the main things that they did. They talk about the culture and the history in the past, and then they also inform about what's coming up, what's going to happen in the future. So this was before magazines like Popular Science, Popular Mechanics, and all of that kind of stuff were out. So yes, this was a big deal. I mean, television. I mean, people first got their look at television at the World's Fair. I think the 39 World's Fair. So yeah, it's really a thing. It really shows you what's to come, and those electricity fads, you know, about them, even if it's a short-lived thing to come. So something kind of cool and interesting. Let's jump back to this now. I mean, around the early 1900s, things kind of changed a bit. We, you know, you started getting really interested in culture and history, and that really reflected into these World's Fairs. And you get like here is some of the later 1800s fairs, and you see how the little pavilions are built around to show off different areas, different cultures, and all of that. It's really well done. And then you start getting into historical things that kind of influence the same time. Like here's Colonial Williamsburg, where you kind of early 1900s, you kind of to start getting that mentality of let's preserve some of this history. And I really think that World's Fairs kind of helped that along, at least a little in people's minds, that level of interest, because there was such interest in history and culture that I think that helped a lot of these movements in the early 1900s to present this. And it was kind of a cool thing. I mean, yeah. And as far as events go, well, I tried to find something that was very Ren Fair like, and I found in the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, uh, Buffalo Bill. Um, he did his Wild West show there, and the World's Fair lasted for most of the year, and he did over 300 shows, one a day, and sold them out like crazy. Everybody went to see it. In fact, that's how he used a lot of the money to found the was it Cody, Wyoming, to found the city. But yes, it was very, very much like those types of events. They would try to find things that would show off the culture and the history in an entertaining way. Now, say what you will about Buffalo Bill and treatment of Native Americans and all of that, but that is what they were trying to do with how they thought about things at the time. Oh yeah, and that's very true, Kurt. Yes, the Artists to the Museum of Science and Industry. That was the Chicago World's Fair was interesting in that you think of all the rivers going through Chicago, all those waterways, and the bridges that go over them. How they turn them green for St. Patrick's Day and all that. Well, during the World's Fair, they built a lot of stuff on the water next to it, and people would travel around in gondolas. See, that's how they did that back then. So yes, for that event. So it's kind of creative. But yeah, a lot of those were not permanent structures. But the Art Institute and the Museum of Science, that was they were worried after the Chicago fire. Before that, they were showing off art. And they said, okay, build it, but it has to be fireproof. So it couldn't be that. It couldn't be a temporary structure. So they made it a more permanent structure, and with a little work, it stuck around. And Kurt's right; it's still there. So if you've ever been to the a Museum of Science and Industry, yeah, that is definitely cool. But yeah, let's see. I guess the real trick from World's Fairs is trying to figure out that balance between the education and sort of the carnival attraction aspect of it. Historically, sometimes they kind of failed a little bit. It was more carnival sideshow attraction. Look at the silly clothes the people are wearing from this backward country kind of mentality, which is a shame. But other times, I think they kind of succeeded and did a much better job. At the very least, I applaud the effort, and that's still an issue I think we wrestle with at Ren Fairs. Whether how much do we focus on the education and how much do we focus on the silly fun carnival attraction that really has nothing to do with history? Like how much do we focus on that turkey leg and how important that is? So it's a balance, and it's a tough route to go, and there's no one way to do it. So it is kind of an interesting aspect of it. Definitely. Yeah, it is interesting. Now, what Kurt was mentioning earlier about Epcot, well, it actually goes before that, because Disney put several exhibits at the World's Fair in the 50s, and they eventually made their way over to I think it was the 50s, yeah, but they eventually made their way over to Disney World and Epcot. Like, for instance, the Carousel of Progress was originally a display at the World's Fair. And, that's kind of interesting because it talks about the culture of America, and it takes a family and shows the turn of the century around 1900 and what it would be like after the next century, 2000. And that was the concept. So the past and the future, and showing that. So yeah, it's an interesting type of event, and Epcot, of course, being sort of like a permanent World's Fair in a way. They had sort of Tomorrowland, and then eventually Epcot. It didn't quite go the way Walt Disney envisioned as far as what it would be like, but it still has a lot to do with it, where you have the different exhibitions of the different countries in there, and some attractions and rides and fun to kind of show you about the past and the future. So always interesting. But yeah, and people compare Ren fairs to Disney all the time. I've never gone to Faire without somebody comparing it to Disney. Whether I've gone as a patron or worked there, it's always a constant comparison. So yeah, I think that Disney certainly influenced Ren fairs, and I do think that World's Fairs influenced both. So yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what we have now. We're already getting way behind. Uh, and yes, you're right. They did the concept cars and everything. That is very much straight from a World's Fair at Disney. You're totally right, Chris. Let's jump on over to the fair map and go over the fairs real quick before I completely run out of time. So yes, here we go. The fair map. Let's see. Okay. Boom. All right. So a few changes this week. We have for the first weekend, it's a 2-weekend fair. So you've got 2 weekends coming up in Maine, the Maine Renaissance Fair in Acton, Maine, right up here. Yes. Prepare your cats for the laser. Then going over to New York, we have the Sterling Renaissance Festival still going on. 4 more weekends left, so it's starting to get there. So and see that if you can. And you'll notice a little star up here over in Canada. Yeah, right, eh? That's pretty good. So we have the Fergus Medieval Fair in Fergus, Ontario. It's only Saturday, so something to check out. It's not too far away from the U.S., so something to check out if you can, or if you're in Canada, something to take a look at. Then we go down to Ohio, where we have the Great Lakes Medieval Fair and Marketplace. 5 more weekends there in Rock Creek, Ohio. Then over to Michigan, we have the Mid-Michigan Enchanted Forest Fair. 2 weekends left in Vassar, Michigan, up here up at the top. And then below that, the Michigan Medieval Fair, last weekend there in Lake Orion, Michigan, right there. Over in Wisconsin, the Bristol Renaissance Fair still has a lot more, 7 more weekends left in Kenosha, so something to check out. Going over to Colorado, the Colorado Renaissance Festival, 3 more weekends in Larkspur. That lovely traditional summer fair that's always appreciated and always uphill. Then over to Oregon, in the Northwest, the lone remaining fair, the Canterbury Renaissance Fair in Silverton, Oregon. It just started up, and it's a 2-weekend fair, so 2 weekends left on that. So there we go. The classic, not a very fair heavy, weekend for fair, but that's starting to change. I mean, July traditionally. Late July is one of the hotter points of the year, so you don't see a ton of fairs, especially in the South. But up north, you do catch a little bit. It'll start to pick up in August, where you'll start to see more and more, and then it'll all go crazy in the fall. But here we go. So not too bad. Well, thanks again for joining me. I should probably go ahead and quit there because I talked a lot about World's Fairs, and I hope you liked it and I didn't bore you too much. I just I do think that's very much an interesting, not often recognized influence of Ren fairs, because that coupled with the market fairs and Disney, and I really think it had at least in state fairs and all of that kind of combined into this is what people like. And you do see elements of it in there, at least a little bit, especially with the temporary concept, because a lot of, where Disney is permanent structures, state fairs and markets sometimes, and Ren fairs, a lot of them are temporary. They just go to a park, and a lot of tents are semi-permanent, and even those with permanent structures, they clear them out at the end of fair. I mean, they're pretty empty. In the off season, it's like a ghost town, so it's very odd sometimes. Going to a fair in the off season is surreal. If you've never done it, it's almost unnerving because you go there and it feels like that it's quiet, too quiet, kind of like that. So I don't know. It's always a little strange for me when I do it. I have to say. So anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope I didn't bore you too much, and hope you at least found it a little interesting. But yeah, next week I'll have I'll have some more interesting sciencey things to say and some history and information, and I'll still be prepping for Gen Con. So wish me luck. I should have some I should have some cool stuff to talk about for next week on that too. Yeah, I know it kind of does have. Uh, it does have. It does have sort of an intrigue, like you're almost backstage kind of feel to it. I get that. I get that, Katsrita. Uh, it's still a little weird. I don't know. Um, yeah, like I missed it. You know, it's a weird feeling. Like, oh wait, am I late? Should I have been? It's that weird feeling of this is wrong. Kind of. I guess I'm just so used to full fairs. Um, More live music. Yes, I need to do another Renaissance Song of the Month thing. So yeah, it is time for that. I'll try to get that in next week, Chris. I promise. Well, yeah, there is that. You have to have a reason to get in. Working there usually allows you to, you know, sometimes they want to talk to you from the off season or do something and special events, and you get that. I've played a few weddings that were held at Ren fairs in the off season, so it varies, but yes, yes. Sciency man, wow, I'm the sciency man. That's interesting. Hmm. The Yes, Andrew McKee, the sciency bard. I don't know. I have to think about that. And take care, Jessica, and good luck on the move. By the way, I hope New Mexico is awesome for you. So here's hoping. So take care, everyone. Have a wonderful night and a great week. And as always, a fair life. Take care.